Before the season even kicks off, soccer fans are already making predictions. Who wins the league? Who qualifies for Europe? And who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi.
There are people out there. They need our help.
Josh Brolin.
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley.
Ow.
Okay, tough guy.
And Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars. Directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parents.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Hello everybody and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us this week for a Monday supplement, I think we'll call it that, because normally we follow up a game by bringing on a journalist guest friend of ours, and that's exactly what we're doing today. And I know it was pre-season, but it was the last one before the real action starts, so we thought, why not get going once again with the proper stuff here on the podcast. That's not to say don't listen to anything else that we've recorded over the summer, because of course we've gone absolutely nowhere, but it does feel like things are ramping up a little. Before I do introduce today's special guest, I will just introduce you to one of the normies. It's Martin. Hello, mate.
The not so special guest. Hello, Gav. It's nice to be back on a Sunday morning, isn't it, talking about real football. Although it's obviously it's going out Monday morning, but we're all meeting and congregating on Sunday morning and get back into the swing of it ahead of the new season. It's like pre-season training for us, isn't it?
Yeah. We're back in the serious stuff, just like Reggie's and the boys. Yes, today we are joined by none other than Phil Smith from the Sunderland Echo. Hello, mate.
Morning, everyone. Thanks very much for having me. Pleasure, as always.
Yeah. Phil, you've been around the team and speaking to people throughout pre-season. I think you were over in France, weren't you, as well, last week. Does it feel like Sunderland are where they wanted to be at this point, going into the new season?
Feels really settled, I think is probably the word I would use. I'm probably used to, well, not just Sunderland, but as most clubs are, used to there being a lot of change at this time of the season and a feeling of things sort of coming together and will the team be ready? And I think settled is probably the word I would use. Regis seems, he's always quite relaxed, but he seems very relaxed to me. Seems in a good place. I think he's got a lot of conviction in the players he's got. So it's been a bit of a weird pre-season, Gavin, and probably the same as most of the fan base, really. Obviously, you've been hoping for some positive transfer news, which has taken a while. But then when you actually watch the team, they look like where they finished last season, which is in a very, very good place. So I've enjoyed, it's obviously a bit weird in pre-season, the way the minutes are shared and stuff, but generally speaking, I've enjoyed watching Sunderland in pre-season. I think they've played some nice stuff. And certainly the second half yesterday was a continuation of that. So it's been good. It's felt really, really, really settled. Obviously, we're all hoping for one or two more through the door. But sitting here right now, I'm really looking forward to the season. You never know how it's going to go, but I just can't wait to crack on. I think the team looks good from kind of where I've been sat.
Yeah, we'll get into some of that today. Martin, we're finally here. How are you feeling about Sunderland with 1 week to go until the Premier League starts?
I can't wait. I really can't wait. And I think, as Phil's touched upon there, we're going in looking really good and really strong. And unlike many other pre-seasons, we're going into the season without too many questions about players. Like, we know what these players are capable of. The players know each other. The players know the manager. The players know the club. They've been settled in the area. they've got an extra year's experience from what they had last season. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see what they can produce, because we saw at the end of last season in that little sort of run towards the end of the campaign, didn't we? Where, and I think Enzo Lefebvre mentioned it after the Chelsea game. He said, we've already been practicing and getting ready for next season in the last few games. So there's so much more, I think, to come from this group of players. And yeah, look, I think we all probably expected a few new signings to be in here by now. I think we'll get them, as we'll talk about at some point in this pod. One looks particularly likely, doesn't it? But whoever comes in, I think they're going to have a hard task to win a position. And I think that's a really nice thing from my point of view, is that there's not one glaring position where you're going, we need a centre forward, or we need a centre back, or we need a goalkeeper. We've got really good players in every position, and anybody who comes in is going to have to work their arse off to actually win that shirt from somebody. So I think it's all looking really positive. I think obviously getting Granit Xhaka back and in the team, in the club, in the dressing room is a massive thing. And it's a little wonder that the last two games particularly have looked a little bit more serious than the ones that went before. But yeah, bring it on. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I think we should start today probably with the Rennes game, Phil, because obviously that's the most obvious place to start. And I was there, you were there. It was cracking, I thought, particularly in that second half where, as I said on our reaction pod, I think we probably have a right to sit here and go, actually, we could have bloody scored 5 or 6 more in that second half, the amount of chances we had. I mean, but how good was that, do you think? Because it's not always important to have good performances in pre-season, but I'm starting to warm up to the idea the closer you get to the season, it's a good sign of, like, this is how we're going to begin things. And with the intensity and the way we played, I just thought that was a really good way to round things off.
No, I agree. The only thing that nags away at me is the complete nonsense superstition that usually under Lebris we have terrible results in pre-season, then we absolutely were like a steam train when the real stuff starts. So I'm hoping this isn't going to be like the other way around. But I think the big thing for me, Gav, from the last 2 games, which I think we can probably draw a bit of a line from post-US to the last 2 games in terms of the way Lebris manages the squad, is that the substitutes have turned the tide both weeks. I don't think
every game, pretty much. Yeah,
I don't think we've played particularly poorly in the first hour at Lons or the first hour yesterday. Although I thought we were poorer yesterday than we were last week. But on both occasions, it's been the energy of the substitutes and the attitude of the substitutes that has really turned things around. And that's probably one of the things that Lebris hasn't had much in his first 2 seasons. Certainly the first season when we got promoted from the Championship, it was a big debate, wasn't it? Because I think people felt like he was a manager who didn't make subs. I think realistically, he probably just didn't have that level of trust in the bench. But I think that's something that I take a lot of confidence from the last 2 weeks. The lads who've come off the bench have looked bang at it and ready to go. There's not been any sulking, hasn't there? Any sense of I should be in the team. So credit to the lads who were doing the hard yards in the first hour. A great example yesterday for me. I thought Angulo worked really hard yesterday and I thought he was decent. Frustrates the life out of me at times when he gets caught offside, when the switch comes over, and that's all part of him being a young player, isn't it? But I thought he worked really hard, and then Rigg comes on against a tyrant left back and, let's be honest, torments him for half an hour. So that's something that I take a lot of confidence from, because I don't think it's something we've always had in the last couple of years, is 3 or 4 lads ready to come off the bench and actually make a massive impact. And touch wood, that seems to be where we are at the moment, because even Diarra in a slightly more disciplined kind of midfield role, I thought was tidy yesterday. So that's something I take a lot of confidence from.
Yeah, it was, like I say, Martin, it was a particularly impressive second half. We created a lot of chances. As I say, could have realistically scored 5 or 6 more goals. I mean, if you go through them, as I did on the reaction pod, Mundle hitting the bar, Ballard missing a free header, which the keeper saved easily, Ronaldo forcing a really good save out of the goalkeeper, Isidore missed the sitter, Robbie smashed one over the bar just before he went off. Lefebvre couldn't get his feet together when he went through. That's 6 that I can just remember straight away there. So, that's a big plus in itself. But against a good standard of opposition, this is a team who are going to be in the Europa League next season. We could actually face them in the group stages. So it's a good sort of sign of where we are, I think, when you can play like that against a decent team.
It is, absolutely. And, again, I think under Lebris, a criticism has been the number of chances that we create. We've been quite ruthless in a lot of games where we've taken the chances that we've had and maybe haven't created as many chances as you'd like to see. And on Saturday we did, and whether that was down to the opposition, I think they'd got beat off Brentford, hadn't they, in midweek. We played a friendly against them.
Yeah.
And, you can read a lot into our performances at this stage of pre-season, I think, it's more difficult to completely understand where the opposition's at. And, you caveat everything that we talk about with that, because I think if we did play them in the Europa League, we'd probably see a very different version of them than we saw on Saturday. But we can only control what we do, can't we? And I think it showed the intent that we've got. It showed the determination and drive that we've got. As you say, it's really pleasing that we had 5 players on Saturday come off the bench and look as if they could make a difference. Even that bit, when it was Isidore got the ball played up to him on the halfway line, and he turned, held somebody off and knocked it out wide. And you're like, you don't really see that from him. And if he can bring something like that to his game as well, we've got a really strong proposition as second choice striker, haven't we? So there's tons of promising signs. Diarra's one who we didn't see the best of last season. He's fully fit in pre-season. He could produce something that we haven't seen before from him as well. Chris Rigg looks as if he's had the sort of pre-season that Joe Bellingham had in between his first and second season, where he looks as if he's just grown up. And it's quite amazing. He can make that sort of difference in just 4 or 5 weeks, isn't it? But he looks as if he's grown up and looks stronger and confident. And it's almost like he's got he believes he can do it in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Whereas last season, I think he was kind of like, oh, can I? I'm not too sure. And I think he knows he can. So that's really promising as well, because whether he's on the right or centrally, he can add an awful lot to the team. Mundell coming on, it was interesting with the contract stuff, which again, something we'll cover in this pod. But there's a player who could add something that maybe we didn't think that he would play a big part this season, but maybe he's going to. So there's so many things to chuck into the mix from Saturday. And you go, you know what, maybe we've slightly underestimated the strength that we do actually have in depth, because those 5 players came on, and there's more to come into the team at some point, and looks as if they can play a part.
Yeah. Before we get into the goals, Phil, I just want to give you your moment to talk about your favourite player, Enzo Lefebvre, because I thought he was brilliant again. And when Martin's talking about, players growing up over the summer and developing and forgetting how good some of the players we've already got actually are. Take yourself back. As we record this, 1 year ago today, we beat West Ham at the Stadium of Light, opening game of the Premier League season. Enzo Lefebvre didn't start that game. When he got into the team, which didn't take him long, to be fair, he was playing out on the left-hand side to accommodate other players. Now, for me, he's the best midfielder we've got. He's the best player in the team. And you've seen the best of him when he's played more centrally, and he's starting to dictate play in a similar way to Rigg, where I think Enzo actually believes he's a top player now, and he's carrying himself around the pitch like a top player. I mean, as I say, you're his biggest fan, I know that, but it's great to see, isn't it? Just to see the way he's come on over the sort of, even in the last sort of 6 months or so, how much better he is as a footballer.
Yeah, it just brings me a lot of joy to watch him, and I think sometimes in modern football we don't talk about that kind of stuff enough. Do you know what I mean? Because it's become so analytical and so data driven, and of course at the moment Enzo does very well on all that stuff. But I just love watching him play. I think it's interesting. Martin mentioned that interview after the Chelsea game that he did with the club, and you could see how driven he was, and he looked to me like someone who didn't want the season to end, because I think he understood that physically and in terms of his football, he was in a really good place. And they asked him about the lads going to the World Cup, and he said something like, I hope they all come back fit, didn't he? And it was like you could just see he was just ready to go. And I think the thing for Lefebvre is that usually a player like Lefebvre in a team that isn't right at the top of the table, you expect them to be a bit of a luxury, don't you? In terms of you think that having them in the team, you're going to lose something out of possession. Whereas I think at the moment, really, you don't with Enzo. I just feel really lucky to be covering Sunderland at a time when we have a player like him. And it's also, I think there's a broader point here where, I know there's a lot of talk about Sunderland with 4th favourites for the drop, and maybe we will have a tough season. But when I look at how people are talking about Sunderland in terms of the second season syndrome, I don't see anyone talking about the fact that Enzo is a completely different player to this time last year. That Brian Brobby is a totally different player this time last year. And I think there is too much discussion happens through the lens of who they've signed. Well, they haven't really signed anyone. Well, actually, developing players is massive. And that's, I would put Lefebvre and Brobby kind of almost top of my list as 2 reasons why I think we've evolved as a team. And why I think second season syndrome teams are teams who get worked out really quickly and can't find another answer. I don't see that with Sunderland at the moment. Obviously, I hope I'm not sitting here after we've been turned over by Ipswich looking daft, but Enzo for me sums up why I feel quite bullish, because I think we are a very different team to what we were a year ago.
Yeah. Okay, the goals, Martin. First one. I mean, do you want to talk about their goal? It was a foul by Ballard. They take the penalty pretty well. I think Roof's just about gets a hand to it, but it's powerful. It goes past him. Bit daft from Ballard to smash into the lad. From my angle behind the goal, it looks like he gets a touch on the ball, but I don't know. Like other people from watching at home and stuff had said that it was a clear penalty. Don't know what your view on it was.
It's hard to say with any true conviction. I think it was just more like with Ballard. It's more the point that he's obviously had a couple of injuries in pre-season. I think he came off an injury at the back end of last season, and we've seen with Ballard he almost needs to work his way up to fitness, doesn't he, for match fitness?
Yeah.
And whether he's still a little bit sluggish or whether he's still carrying something, it's just something to watch ahead of the next few weeks. Obviously, it's one area of the pitch that we are a little short in, I guess, going into the new season in terms of fitness rather than personnel. But yeah, look at that. Referee gave it. Roofs. No, when you watch the replay, I thought the penalty got blasted in. When you see it from behind the goal, Roof's got a pretty good hand to it. He'd probably be disappointed he hadn't saved it.
Yeah, I put a video on our Twitter page because I'm sad. I recorded it. I was right behind it in the rotor end, so I recorded it and I stuck it on Twitter. But it does hit him, yeah, and you can't tell from the side replays really that it does. Yeah.
No, that's right.
Phil, just on the first Sunderland goal, because obviously we want to talk about more exciting things. A rounder point about this would be that I thought the set players were brilliant. It looks like it's something we've really worked on. I know we've got a new set player coach who's came in. I think Jose Font's taken up that mantle, hasn't he?
I think
on the set players.
James Brain is still the set piece coach, but I think Font, one of his roles that he's been brought in is to give a bit of extra support on that front. So there's definitely a bit of an added additional focus on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could tell things look a little bit more sharp, a little bit more progressive. We're trying out new things. We've worked out kind of the fact that we're not the biggest team in the world, so you've got to be a bit more smart with how you do things. But I think generally in pre-season the set players have been pretty good, and they were great in this game. And obviously we score from one. But Trey Hume, it's interesting. He's sort of, it doesn't matter where he is on the pitch now. He seems to be popping up in the right positions to score goals, and that's a knack that you can't coach. I don't think many players have that knack of just being in the right place at the right time. And yeah, he's a defender. Sometimes he's a midfielder. Sometimes he's out on the right being a foil for other people. But one thing he's done in pre-season is he's shown he's got an eye for goal, and he showed it in the last game of the season against Chelsea. And it's just intriguing. One thing that stood out for me, that.
I think he's got a little bit more composure about him in the final third. I don't know if that's a consequence of like the games he's played on the right wing and stuff. And yeah, I'm sure he's enjoying it, because he mentioned to us more than a few times in the first half of last season that he'd been teased a little bit behind the scenes for his lack of goals. So I imagine he's finding it very satisfying that he keeps popping up. Listen, again, we keep going back to it. You just know what you're going to get from Hume week in, week out. And that's one of the reasons you can feel, quite comfortable about where the team's at. He's been excellent throughout pre-season. I wouldn't expect anything less, because that's just what he does. But wherever you pop him on the pitch, he delivers. And yeah, really solid again yesterday. And I agree with you, there's a little bit more composure about him. I think if you look at the goals he scored, the one at Lons was more old-fashioned Trey Hume, wasn't that? Was just desire. He was going to get the ball first, and he didn't care if the keeper punched him. But certainly the Chelsea goal and the one yesterday, just a little bit of composure, really good to see. And, it just goes to show, similar discussion with Luke O'Nien, really just goes to show if you've got the desire to keep learning, there's no limit really, is there, on what you can achieve. He's top drawer, is Trey.
Yeah. And the Brobby goal, Martin, Phil called it funny or hilarious. I can't remember which word he used, but it was really funny. And it was a great example of just what he does best, because even from the moment the ball's going over the top, he looked sharp, which he didn't look when he first came into the team earlier in pre-season. I think he looked a little sluggish at times, and he's got better and better in this aspect. But he was sharp. He read the situation. He forced the defender to make a silly decision in trying to head it back to the goalkeeper, which, bear in mind, the ball was dropping from a great height. You don't have much pace on the ball to head it backwards. Robbie reads it well. Doesn't do particularly well. He's not the type of striker who's going to skip round a goalkeeper and finish it, is he? He's not that composed. So he kind of nudges it into the onrushing keeper and gets a little bit fortunate with where the ball lands. but then just swats this young kid away like he's a fly. It's like it's just if he goes on his arse, the defender, he probably gets a foul because it looks a bit hilarious. But Brobby just doesn't give a shite and charges into him, sends him into the east stand practically, and then rolls it into an empty net. And I love this goal. It was brilliant.
That was a fantastic pre-season goal, wasn't it? And you do wonder in the Premier League how many replays they would take to decide whether they would allow it or whether they disallow it. But there was no VAR, was it? So
No.
it was all good. And it, yeah, it was. It was nice to see him getting the score sheet as well. And Phil's talked about some of the players who we're looking forward to seeing in terms of who's developed and got better. But hey, Robbie's another one, isn't he? I would say it's probably February or March until he got really fully fit and right up to his full pelt. Had a great World Cup. So he's coming into the start of the season fully fit off the back of the World Cup. Hell of a lot better place, you'd presume, mentally and confidence-wise, from the player who arrived at Sunderland on deadline day. I don't think he started the game until November, did he, for us? So, you've got Robbie coming into the team, fully fit, goal threat. And obviously people are going to be a lot more aware of what he can bring. And if they needed any reminding, that goal was a reminder, wasn't it? Because it's pure brute force, and you could double up as a good bouncer if he needed to supplement his pay packet, I think, through the week, couldn't he? But brilliant, and yeah, a funny goal. Nice to see him. But you know what it was as well with that goal? He didn't give up. He just kept charging down, kept going for the ball, kept looking for it. And, sometimes he was maybe a little guilty of not doing that last season, particularly when he first came into the team. And whether that was him conserving his energy or not, I don't know. But just that willingness and that desire to get on the end of things, make something happen. Yeah, and it had a little comedic element to it as well.
Yeah. I know in a bit, Phil, we're going to talk a little bit about Dayann Methalie, but I think it's important we give some props for the current left-back, who is Ronaldo, because I thought that was a well-timed performance from him. I thought he was really, really good, probably as well as I've seen him play for Sunderland, just at the right moment, because he knows the strong competition coming in. He wants to impress. You always get that impression with Ronaldo when you hear him speak, that he's so grounded, probably from where he comes from. He came from humble beginnings as a person, growing up in Mozambique, where I'm sure life wasn't easy, and that keeps him hungry even at his age. And you saw it in the performance. I think he's another one who looked really fit, sharp, ready to go, and he was a threat all afternoon. And I wish he'd scored that header, because it was the only thing missing from his performance, is that he would have deservedly got some credit for scoring a very good header. I thought he was excellent in that game.
Yeah, really nice chemistry with Talby. I thought for the first hour, I thought they linked nicely, helped each other out when one was under pressure and possession nicely. I think it was, yeah, I agree with you. It was definitely the sharpest he's looked at pre-season, and that's obviously the idea, isn't it? That as the season draws nearer, you get better and better. I thought it was a great performance, and going back to something Martin said earlier, it's, yes, we want more players in, but I think probably part of the patience from the club comes from, well, they're probably not going to get in Labrisse's starting 11 on the first day of the season anyway, because I think he's been very, very clear from day one that he wants to he believes that players that finished last season so well deserve the opportunity to go again. I think Reynolds in that category. I agree with you. A little bit of a shame couldn't get on the score sheet, but to be fair, don't think it was poor finishing, was it really? I actually thought
it was a great header.
Really good save. Mm-hmm. And the one just before half time, I don't think he did a lot wrong with that shot across goal. That was a good save as well from Samba with his boot. So I thought that was, I think you've summed that up very well. It was a good, timely performance, that, to say, well, okay, you might be about to drop 25 million on a new left back, but I'm still here. And I think, listen, Reynolds missed a fair amount of football last season, didn't he? Part of that was due to AFCON, but I think with his age, you've got to anticipate that he's not going to be able to play 50 games. So I think it was really important that they did that. But I think it was great to see him show that he's got the fight for the battle that's ahead.
Yeah. And you spoke obviously after the game with Reggie and about a number of things, but one of the big stories which came out of those conversations was around Romain Mundle last week. Earlier in the week, it was reported that he's about to sign a new contract, which I think surprised a lot of people. Created a lot of really strange backlash online, which I didn't quite understand. And I'll leave that for you to come on to, Martin, in a minute. But you spoke to him after the game, Phil, about Romain Mundle, and it felt like quite an emphatic backing of the player from what I read. Very strong words about how highly rated he is, and how much potential we're seeing him, and the fact he thinks these injuries are behind him now. How strong was that message about Mundle, do you think?
Yeah, I suppose it was strong, and it was also consistent. And I think you guys know how I operate. I wouldn't pretend to know something that I don't. And I was a bit taken by surprise when the Mundle news broke. My assumption was that with the competition for places in the team, with the way entering the last 2 years of his contract, it probably made sense for him to move on and for someone to cash in. That was kind of how I saw it going. So I was a little bit surprised initially, but then once I'd kind of sat with the news for a little bit, I thought, well, Labrise has backed Mundle at every single opportunity he's had since he arrived at the club to replace Jack Clark, to bring him back for the playoffs when obviously there was that question over his injuries at the time. And then last season, he gave him opportunities before those injuries again. And I think Labrise was, really clear that we know that when Mundle is fit, he can have an impact at this level. And he's always said that as for the last year since Sunderland got promoted. And I think it was a balance, because what he also said was he needs to stay fit and we have a lot of competition for places. So this isn't a scenario where Mundle's getting a new contract and it's you're going to be starting against Ipswich, by the way, and I'm backing you for, he's got a real fight on to get in the team. But I think when you look at the expanded schedule, I think it's a case of Sunderland saying, it looks like he's through his hamstring injuries. He's had 2 surgeries now. We think he's got a good base and we believe he's got the quality. So, yeah, I think it's a good move. It gives Sunderland a little bit of protection, and I think the view is we're not ready to give up on him yet, and I completely back that. Might be a little bit nervous if he was our only left winger because of that injury record, but I think the fact that you've now got Talbi Angulo as well, I think he's just got the potential to be a little bit of a kind of a bonus ball for this season. So I won't pretend that I saw it coming, because I definitely didn't. But I think when you actually kind of sit with it for a bit longer, I think there's a lot of sense to it, especially when you kind of go back and see how Labrise has consistently spoken about, which he doesn't do with every player. I think that's the thing I would say. He's not a manager who just talks about how great every player is.
Yeah. I think that's important, Martin. The way that we're kind of looking beyond the past, and he's a 23-year-old player. He's homegrown. He's English, so that's going to come in handy. And as Labrise apparently seems to believe, his injury problems are behind him now, and he's had two disrupted years. Where before that, he was a really important player for us. I can remember thinking, Romain Mundle at full pelt is one of the players we had in that squad in the Championship that could genuinely play Premier League football. He had that ability, a little bit of quality you don't always see in the Championship. And for a number of reasons, he's fell down the pecking order. He's been out with injuries and stuff. But I think Phil touched on a really important point there about the length of contract. If you give a 23-year-old an extended deal, let's say this year doesn't work out for Mundle, he doesn't play much. Maybe he then says, look, I want to go and move on elsewhere and I want to play football for somebody where I'm playing 30, 40 games a season. That extra length on the contract is vital when trying to get a decent fee for a player, as we've seen repeatedly with other players under this sort of ownership. So there's that. But also, to bring it back around to fans and stuff, I hated the reaction that it got when that news came out, because some of it was ridiculous. And Mundle played really well when he came on the pitch on Saturday, and I felt like that was almost a bit of a middle finger up to some people, is to say, look, I can play with these players that we've got, I can compete, I can mix it. And I was a bit gutted he hit the bar with his free kick, which was a really well hit free kick. But yeah, just a few words on Mundle, his situation and stuff, because I think it's important that people think with a clear head on this.
Well, it is, and I think what you can't overlook in all of this is the mental impact on his injuries, because he's had a very similar injury 2 or 3 times, hasn't he? That's knocked him out for quite a significant period of time. So you've got this young lad, and he is still young as a footballer. He's not young in terms of, or in comparison to Chris Rigg or somebody like that, but he is still a young footballer. I was having a look before, right? How many games, Gav, do you reckon Romain Mundle has played from start to finish in the league for Sunderland? How many games do you reckon he's completed?
I bet you I don't even know how many games he's actually played for us, but I reckon there's not many. 3, 4.
Right. So he's made 25 league starts for us and has finished 5 games.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a player here who's played 5 full 90 minutes in the league for Sunderland. The club have seen him week in, week out in training. They know his ability, they know his potential, and as we know, just as importantly, they know his character.
Yeah.
So they're going, he's somebody who we want to stick around. He's somebody who we believe in. And we can watch matches. We can see him play. We can see him drift in and out of games. We can see him produce some moments of magic, as he did when Jack Clark first left, and he really came into the team and looked the part. But we don't see him every day. So we're making I'm not going to include myself in it because I'm not. People make judgments on players with maybe 10% or 20% of the information. And it's absolute nonsense. And, you've got a young lad here who will be desperate to make it at Sunderland. He'll be desperate to be over his injuries and have the full confidence in his body. His body's going to be able to stand up to playing professional football for a relatively sustained period of time. And we've got to back him. Now, look, there will be a business element to this as well, as you touched upon. Given an extension of his contract, if he plays a few games here and there this season, or he's able to establish himself in the team, potentially plays in the Europa League, and we decide to move him on next year, then his value is going to be a lot higher than it would be now. So there's no doubt going to be a business aspect to this as well. But, I've said it before, I've said it countless times on here, like, as supporters, we should support. And that's not just, getting your blinkers on and clapping everything that we do. But these people are humans, are individuals. And Romain Mundle's only ever given his very best for Sunderland. So what part of that makes you want to write him off or slag him off or not support him? There's none of it. So, look, he showed yesterday, or on Saturday, given that this is going out Monday, he showed on Saturday that he can be an effective player. And you know what? He could very well be the surprise package of the season if he's able to maintain his fitness, because he's got the ability, he's got the goals in him. And that's another aspect to this, which he has shown, is he's a goal threat.
Yeah.
He is a genuine goal threat. And, we maybe have lacked a little bit of goals from out wide over the course of the last 2 years. So, look, get behind him, give him all your backing, everybody. Anybody who's dubious about this, wait and see, because he could surprise us all.
Yeah, I love the little quote from Regis where he said, "We know the player has a pure X factor, and it's rare. This ability to dribble and to finish in the final turn." I enjoyed that. I think that's the bit that people sometimes miss, that not all players have that X factor, that ability to do what he can do when he gets in the right positions, and that's probably the big reason why they see so much potential in him. Okay, we'll shoot for a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk all about Sunderland's incoming left-back, Dayann Methalie. So we'll see after these ads.
Before the season even kicks off, soccer fans are already making predictions. Who wins the league? Who qualifies for Europe? And who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in-minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a shortlist of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Welcome back to Howie the podcast. And yes, Phil, it looks like Sunderland have finally signed another player, which I think will please all the bedwetters who were a bit worried. he wouldn't confirm it after the game when he was asked about it. But during the game, the news broke that the clubs had reached an agreement on a deal. I think the BBC are reporting the fee as around 25.6 million in total, a 23.9 million initial fee with 1.7 million in add-ons. And it appeared that Toulouse were a little bit reluctant to sell. Certainly at the point we were making offers, they were, if you believe what you read, they were coming back with wanting more and more money, and we don't really know how this has kind of played out, but you can kind of guess based on how we've dealt with transfers in the past that we've been very steadfast and robust, and we've not caved initially to whatever they wanted. And certainly the rumours coming out of France are that Toulouse's ownership actually intervened and instructed the CEO to sanction a deal. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it looks like things have progressed rapidly anyways, and he's going to be on Weir side to take a medical, I think on Monday was what I read, and has already agreed a 5-year deal with the club. So this signifies quite a big move in the transfer market, doesn't it? But, you've been following this closely. How close do you actually think this is? Where's it been at over the last couple of weeks? Like, is my reading of it about where things are, do you think?
Yeah, I can't speak too much to what you mentioned there, the reports coming out from the Toulouse end, obviously. But I think, obviously, it's a bit tricky because this is going out on Monday morning. I suspect it'll have advanced again. I mean, certainly at this point, we're recording at 20 to 10 on Sunday morning. And, from my end, the people I've spoken to it's not absolutely done yet, but there has clearly been a significant shift over the last 48 hours. And I think that fee you mentioned is kind of been agreed in principle, if you like. But I think there's a few little bits and bobs to be resolved before I think anyone, certainly kind of Sunderland then, can feel like they can say this is definitely done. But there's definitely been a big shift, and I would expect it's going to happen. And I expect by the time people listen to this on Monday, it might well be all agreed. I think the one thing that I can kind of report with a big degree of confidence, I think the structure of the deal has been the big thing. So I think that initially the bids were very heavily supplemented by performance-related add-ons, and I think probably the thing that has shifted the needle is we've now reached a point where most of the fee is upfront, is kind of guaranteed to Toulouse, and the add-ons are a smaller part of the deal than they probably were initially, and I think that is why we've had a significant breakthrough. I think on the player side, I think it is pretty much all done, which is why I think everyone's quite confident it'll happen. But yeah, I think it's great because I think Sunderland have been really patient on this one. They haven't panicked. They haven't gone up to a massive fee. They haven't gone out and bought somebody else. I think they've just held their nerve. And, Lebris has been saying all summer, we're going to be precise this summer. We know exactly what we want and we're going to try and get it. So yeah, it looks really, really promising. As I say, I imagine by the time people are listening to this on Monday, we might be at a point where he's travelling or about to travel. So there's definitely been a big shift in the last kind of 24, 48 hours. I think the structure of the deal is the big thing.
Yeah, that's right, Martin, isn't it? And those are the bits we don't see as fans. We just, once it's basically done, we hear, the player's travelling for medical, great. But these are complex business transactions. Like, there's a lot of money on the table there, close to 30 million pounds, all in or whatever. Like, it's this isn't something that can just be done very quickly if on the face of it. I think these deals there's a lot of back and forth, probably a hell of a lot more than we ever understand. And there has been an awful lot of why aren't we signing anybody kind of noise over the last few weeks. Is the Methalie deal the ultimate example of why people just need to trust the process and let it play out?
Well, I think that it's a very different scenario to last summer. And people, all of us enjoyed last summer. All of us enjoyed seeing new names being linked and transfers coming off and people coming in, all that sort of stuff. And it's great. It was good fun, wasn't it? We needed to do that as a club. And if anybody casts their mind back to last summer, and Gav, you talked to a lot of the people who knew about the players who were joining us, right? And the recurring theme for the players who came in relatively early was that Sunderland had paid maybe quite a lot for them, and maybe gone a year early in terms of when we thought that player would move. And we probably did, pay a little bit more for some of those players than we might have been able to do if we'd held off until the later stages of the window. But last summer we weren't in a position to do that, so we had to get the players in early so Lebris could coach them, get them on the training field, get the pre-season games in them, so we could start off against West Ham last season with as much confidence as possible and as much certainty as possible. This summer's completely different. As Phil says, precise, and that's the word that's been used. And that is both in terms of the individuals coming in and the deal for the club and how it's structured. And, the reality is that, as we touched upon before, the team that starts against Ipswich will more than likely be a team that contains no debutants. I'd be actually really surprised now, especially with Mounier missing out on Saturday. I don't think we'll have any people making the debuts in the starting 11 on Saturday, which incidentally, that'll be the first time since 2003 that's happened where we haven't had somebody making the debut on the first day of the season. That's a question that I asked in the pod that came out yesterday when we were talking about opening day things, and we didn't get around to answering, but there you are. If people are looking for a bit of continuity, we've got it.
Yeah, I mean, assuming this Methalie deal gets done, Phil, that makes it he's only the second player through the door. But as we've kind of said, it's about adding quality, little bits of quality here and there now with the squad, isn't it? I mean, what do you think the next priority will be because we are heading into the last fortnight or so of the window. I think window shuts 3rd of September, I think. So there's a couple of weeks we probably do need another 3, 4, 5 players if you're being greedy. But what's the next priority, do you think?
By the way, I'm definitely pinching that stat, Martin. So you're forewarned. I'm definitely on that.
Just double check it, Phil.
Yeah. Apologies in advance. I think probably the two for me that I felt or somebody would sign. Obviously, I think that the right winger is one. I still think they'll sign a left-sided centre back. It's just something that I think. Obviously, they went for Muharemovic earlier in the summer, and for various reasons, I think that deal made more sense for Leeds, and they got that done. But I just think when you look at last summer, they were so keen on Lasumi, and that didn't happen, and they didn't get anyone kind of directly to replace him. Now, obviously, since then, I think Luke O'Nine's done brilliantly, and I think he allows you to probably not be too nervous about, not having an alternative to Alderete, because I think O'Nine can do that. But I still think that's something that they might like to do, I think, if the right player is there. So I definitely think the right wing is the big priority, and I also wouldn't be surprised to see a left-sided centre-back. But I think it's really interesting. I'm going to throw this one back to you guys. So given that he's only had 45 minutes and he missed yesterday, I think it's a stretch, as Mark mentioned, to see Mounier start at Ipswich. So do we think Rigg will get that spot? Because, I mean, he could kick the door down and make that shirt his own, given what he's done in pre-season. And that, I'm not saying Sunderland wouldn't sign a right winger. I think they will regardless. But to me, he just looks like someone who's ready to take his opportunity. So that could be an interesting quirk as well. Maybe he'll go with Angulo and stick with Rigg off the bench. I'm not sure, but would you two go with Rigg if Mounier is not ready?
I'm very tempted based on the last couple of games. And the only caveat to it would be he's made an impact off the bench rather than starting. So I'm not would you want to rob ourselves of having somebody to make that sort of difference off the bench? But it's interesting.
He might have been his own worst enemy on that front in terms of being so good as an impact sub, mightn't he? But I just think that's an interesting one. Could he put his hand up and say, yes, a right winger's coming in, but for the time being, I can 100% be that guy.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on Nordy's availability, doesn't it? Because I don't know what kind of confidence you got yesterday from speaking to Reggie's Phil, but reading the quotes written down, he was kind of hinting that he's going to be probably okay for that game.
Yeah,
and he's had a bit of a pre-season, so it's not like Mounier where he hasn't played very much.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. So it looks like Alderete and Mukiele are on track for next weekend, which is good. But I've got in the back of my mind, when Labrie said after the Lons game, he doesn't, he thinks they'll be in the squad, but maybe not ready to start. Labrie tends not to give stuff like that up for no reason. So I just think he's got in the back of his mind that he maybe thinks they won't quite be ready to start. Because as I say, he doesn't say things like that just, for the sake of it. So I'm kind of working on the probably thinking that Mukiele will be on the bench, but, it would be very Labrie's to spring a little bit of surprise and keep his cards close to his chest. Right. And obviously, I think if Mukiele is fit, Hume plays on the right wing, doesn't he? I think that's just, I know some people won't like it, and that's absolutely fine. I'm fine with it personally, but yeah, I think that'll probably be how it goes. So that's definitely one to watch, but I think O'Nine will play. I don't think he'll risk Alderete. I think O'Nine deserves it personally.
I think we've seen, haven't we, with Labris, that he won't chuck players in if they're not fully fit and he's not confident. Like we saw it in Newcastle, didn't we? Where we had reams of players who were on the verge of coming back and none of them started. They were all on the bench. Lafay, Mukiele, there were some others. And we've seen that with Labris in the past, haven't we, where he won't risk them for one game. He's got a much longer term outlook on things. And I do suspect that Mukiele, if he is, and Alderete will be on the bench at best on Saturday. But I would 100% start Chris Rigg on the right-hand side. I think if it was a home game, there's probably more of a chance of Angulo starting. But as an away game, I think he'll start with Rigg because he proved last season, didn't he, how he can do that job away from home especially. And at home, he's impressed. But I just think with it being an away game, and look, it's a newly promoted side, they're going to be as up for it or more up for it than they're going to be at any other point of the season. So it's going to be a game where we have to dig in at points, and Rigg's brilliant at doing that. And I think Phil's spot on. The vast majority of the season, Trey Hume's going to be right midfield with Mukiele behind him. We talked in a Q&A pod not so long ago, didn't we, about why that's actually completely fine and why it makes an awful lot of sense from a tactical point of view. And it enables Mukiele to bomb forward and do his thing as well. So I think it's all good. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not like desperate for a right winger to come in. So I think if you bring a big name, chances are we probably will before the end of the transfer window spend quite a bit of money on the right winger. But I don't think it's necessarily an automatic slot them straight into the side. I think they're going to have to almost pick and choose when to play that person and when Trey Hume or Chris Rigg or whoever else is the right option on the right-hand side.
No, it's going to be a long season and we've got a lot of games to play, and it would be unrealistic to think, right, this is the best 11 players that are going to play every single game, and we need options and we need different types of players for each position depending on the scenario. And that's where Rigg comes into my thinking for the Ipswich game, Phil, because I actually think to a different degree him and Hume can almost play that same role on the right, where they're almost a bit of a foil for whoever bombs past them on the right hand side. Hopefully Mukiele, but if it is Meunier or Hume, great. But it's we've almost invented this position, or Regis has almost invented this position on the right, where whoever's playing on the right of midfield isn't necessarily always the winger, and they're kind of a hybrid of a right midfielder, a central midfield player, sometimes a right back having to fill in, sometimes playing alongside the striker in a 4-4-2 when we haven't got the ball. You'll always kind of see that player join up alongside Brobby or Isidore and getting involved in that sort of place in the pitch. So I'm not, like Martin, I'm not worried about who plays there on Saturday, but I think Rigg makes a lot of sense because he gives us a lot of creativity too from that side of the pitch. And we were talking about this earlier in the week on our pods, but it's a bit, to me, Rigg, he's gone away over the summer and he's changed his game a little bit and he's changed physically a little bit. But I think what I noticed most about him on that right-hand side is just when he gets it on the right, he takes one touch and he whips it in. And the team know he's going to do it. And we're piling at the back post and we're getting bodies into dangerous areas. That's what he can do that others can't. And I think that's what might give him the edge. If we are missing Nordy, it's what might give him the edge of starting on that side of the pitch next week.
Yeah, definitely. And I think his delivery has been really consistent through pre-season as well. I think that's the big thing as well. He's kind of putting it in the right place time and time again. So, yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think at this stage, I would go with Rigg. Just as an aside to that, Gab, that you mentioned there, I know I've only watched him for 45 minutes, but I definitely came away from that game thinking Meunier could do that Hume field job, like technically very good energy. He could definitely play that role with Mukiele kind of overlapping. So I do think there's hopefully people don't listen to this and think I'm saying we're not going to sign a right winger. I'm quite confident that someone will before the end of the window. But yeah, there's definitely options there. And I came away from, it was interesting actually when we spoke to Meunier after the game, he was really kind of glowing in his praise for Trey Hume, but also said that he thinks there's a lot of similarities between them as players. And I totally got that watching the Lons game. I thought that as well. So I definitely think he could be another option as well, slightly further forward. If you play Mukiele in that like ultra attacking right back role, which I love watching as well. If that means the person in front of them has to be a bit more disciplined to let Nordy go and do that, I'm fine with that. I think it's great fun watching Nordy, crash into the final third.
Yeah, but it's about having options. And I think Jocelyn is probably the only winger we've got that does from the right anyways, that does the cutting inside and running directly at defenders. And what we probably need is somebody like him, but with more experience and a bit more pedigree, if we're being honest. Like I like the fact we've got so many options on that right hand side of the pitch. And I've seen people describe the situation as desperate, but as Martin kind of said before, I don't think we are desperate on the right. I think that would be my next priority, definitely. And we do need a player who can play there. But we've also learned a lot about the players who've came in over pre-season, Phil, and seen, different side of Hume, different side of Chris Rigg, different side even to Angulo when he's out there. It's great to have that variety, even if not one of them stands out as that is our guy on that part of the pitch.
Yeah, I agree. As I say, I think you do definitely need one for the full season, because there's going to be, I think the big thing as well is there's going to be times where you're chasing a game late on, right? And you're going to want to proper, like almost old-fashioned wingers, if you like, to try and make things happen and try and have a threat from both sides of the pitch. But, I think you've got to also have a little bit of belief in the fact that this slightly kind of lopsided system that we're playing at the moment, we played so well at the end of last season. And I think sometimes it can be easy to look at it and say, well, we're playing kind of a right back on the right midfield. That's negative, but it's allowed Enzo to play as a 10 in basically pretty much a free role. It's allowed the left winger to have a bit more attacking freedom, whether that be Talby. So I don't think it's as simple as it being a defensive move. I think it's actually opened up attacking possibilities elsewhere on the pitch. Enzo getting closer to Brobby. So I think it's all part of the picture. And at the moment, I'm really happy with the balance of the side and the shape of the side, and I wouldn't be changing it. I think, as you've alluded to, it's a long season, and there will inevitably be a moment where we say we need to change this up a bit. We need something a little bit different. We've got a little bit predictable. Teams have worked this out. I do think it's really important you have that more explosive winger, I think, off the right hand side when and if you need to change it. But for the moment, I think the level of performance that the team's produced pre-season, but also most importantly in the 4 or 5 games of last season, I think speaks for itself.
And we've touched on it a couple of times, but before we head off, we might as well ask your thoughts on Ipswich, because we've talked a lot about where the squad's at and how we played in the last couple of games. But Ipswich are a newly promoted side. First game of the season away from home. We saw that last year when we played Burnley in their first game at Turf Moor. That there's a bit of extra edge about these games, and like 11v11, I'm confident we've got a better team than Ipswich, but we can't underestimate them. This is a big game for them coming back into the Premier League. I mean, where's your confidence levels at?
Yeah, I think probably fairly similar to kind of what you're outlining there. I've got a fair degree of confidence in Sunderland turning up and putting in a performance. I think it's the worst time to play a newly promoted team, at their place on the opening day of the season. And in that sense, I think it's a tricky game. I think it's a tricky start. I think it's a tricky first block of 5 games, to be honest. I remember thinking that when the fixtures came out, but I do have a degree of confidence that Sunderland will turn up and produce a performance. And listen, hopefully, yesterday, the first half being a little bit of an indifferent performance from Sunderland works in our favour next weekend. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a, look, we're in a good place, but if we're not bang at it, we still will get turned over. So I'm just hoping the dynamics of that play in our favour a little bit, that it's, a little bit of a wake-up call ahead of the season, because it is going to be intense. And that first half, I think, especially Ipswich, is going to be tricky. But, any nerves I have come from, well, I think the atmosphere is going to be like at Ipswich, and rather than anything based with the Sunderland team. At this point in time, I have a lot of faith in the team that goes out producing.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get a lot more into this week, Martin, on the pod. But interesting that pre-season has seen us step up in terms of the way we dominate the ball. I actually think I'm struggling to think of a game in pre-season where, I'm talking about when we've had the senior players on the pitch, sorry, but I'm struggling to think of a game in pre-season where we haven't been more on the ball and more dominant when we've had the best team on the pitch. So it's felt to me at least that we've kind of, in pre-season anyways, we want more of the ball. We're seeing more of the ball. But we've seen that other side to us in last season, particularly before we hit the 40-point mark, where we would go away from home and put 11 behind the ball, and that would be our way of figuring teams out. And then later in games, kind of building up to maybe taking opportunities in front of goal. Like, how do you see us approaching this based on what you've seen over the last couple of weeks?
going to be really interesting, isn't it? Because we didn't have the best away record last season, did we?
No.
We did have a period of time where we kind of struggled away from home. And I do think a lot of that was that we actually couldn't stifle the opposition for the first little bit. We couldn't take the sting out of the game. And I think we found that hard to do. So if we can go into games and maybe have a greater share of possession and dominate the ball a little bit more and actually take control of the game from the off, then that'll stand us in good stead. And, all of us would much rather be playing Ipswich away in March, April, or May than in the opening day of the season, wouldn't we? It's that sort of fixture. But, we can go there and dominate possession if we choose to, because I just think Lebris is such a good manager tactically. We can figure it out. So I'm really intrigued. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if we will try to just take the sting out of the game and let them have possession and we'll soak it up, or whether we'll go in and try to dominate a bit more. If I was going to put some money in, I would say it was the latter, but I do think we'll try to take control of the game. And it's going to be interesting, as Lebris will no doubt say in a press conference this week, how it's all going to transpire. But plenty more time to talk about it all, isn't it? But I'm looking forward to it, as I said at the start. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're looking forward to it, Phil. It's been good this summer. I've actually really enjoyed all the football and stuff, but the proper stuff starts now. You'll be heading down there, I'm sure, for the game, and it's all feeling a bit real now.
I'm buzzing for it. I'm buzzing for the season. I think it's obviously going to be ups and downs. I think Europe will impact us, but I'm honestly just sitting here just buzzing. I think it's the best Sunderland team I've ever seen in my lifetime. Unfortunately, I'm the wrong side of 30 now, but I think a lot of the players I just love watching, just excited about what's ahead. The Lons game really just got me buzzing for the whole season. Such a good vibe out there. Everyone, all the Sunderland fans I met, just so excited. Still a little bit like can't quite believe what's happened, really. So I just can't wait to get started. I think, yes, there's going to be ups and downs, of course there are, but I just think it's an amazing time to be following Sunderland, and I'm just really, really ready to get stuck in. I think these are the good times. We know that because we've been through the very worst of times, and for sure, there's always a bit of nervousness at the start of the season, but I just think we've got to enjoy it. What a time to be following Sunderland.
Yeah, that's a great place to leave things, I think. Thank you very much, Phil. Been great, mate.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and you can find Phil, of course, and all of his coverage at the Sunderland Echo, and make sure you check in this week to see what's going on. Might even drop a few more transfer nuggets. You never know. Let's see how things go this week. That would be nice. That would give us a bit of extra pep, wouldn't it, leading up to that game?
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. As you know, I wouldn't ever make any promises about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're not a clickbait merchant, Phil. You're a proper journalist. That's why. Thank you very much, Martin. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Gav. Yes, and somebody who's the wrong side of 40. It's the best Sunderland team in my lifetime as well. So there you go.
There you go.
There we go. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, listeners. We will be back tomorrow with another show. We'll have all your regular build-up over on the website and on the pod feeds leading up to that Ipswich game. Of course, we cannot wait to get stuck right into it. We'll have all our usual fare as we do leading up to games. So yes, be sure to check back in with us and keep an eye out on the Roker Report website, and also on social media. We are at Roker Report. Give us a follow on your favourite platform. But from us, it's bye for now.